can be easily adopted in our ordinary laboratory environment. And obviously, the surface morphology and the properties of the synthesized material depends on the type of precursors, its concentration, pH of the solution, temperature, growth duration, etc. Sometimes, instead of heating by furnace, we use microwave heating. Microwave heating allows us to remove the defects, and if we use microwave heating, the defects are quite less. And in this method, we can also prepare thin film. Not only in powder form, we can also prepare thin film. So for thin film, what we do, whenever we put the liquid aqueous precursors here, we put a substrate over here, say silicon or glass or quartz slice. We shall put it here and close it, and the entire system as is. So the deposition will be over that substrate. So we can grow thin film of nanomaterial also by this hydrothermal methods. Now we shall see some of the representative results reported in the literature. Here you see the scanning electron microscope image of zinc oxide nanorods. This is the over silicon substrate. This is the nanorods grown for a duration of 5 hours. You see well-grown nanorods are found with average length about 3 to 400 nanometers. This is the scale bar. And this scale bar is very important. You know, already I have discussed that unless or until you don't have this scale bar, this picture has no meaning, because from this scale bar we can calculate this size of the nanorods. So from this scale bar here, we can see that the size is about 300 to 400 nanometer, like that. If the growth duration is increased further, then we see the morphology gets changed. The rods gets thinner and thinner. Here you can see also, and it's extended, it's elongated. If you see here in this picture, the growth duration is 15 hours. In that case, the rod lengths are about 5 microns. If this is 1 micron, so I think this is 5 microns, whereas the diameter has get thin. So if we increase further, then the diameter reduces and the length increases also. So there are several mechanisms for this growth. I'll not be discussing here, but what we see here, that this growth duration plays an important role in determining the morphology of the synthesized nanostructures. So not only nanorods, we can also grow varieties of nanostructures. Here you can see here some other zinc oxide hierarchical structures. You see these are assembles of nanorods, flower-like nanorods are there. So varieties of nanostructures can be formed. Here is one example. Here you see a bunch of nanowires, nanopencils are there. That is grown. I'm not saying all other results, but you see these are very fine structures that can be grown by this method. So these are the beauties of this method. But one major disadvantage is that this is a low temperature growth. And from the basic physics of defects, we know that defects are there at low temperature. If the material grows at low temperature, there is a probability of more number of defects. So to remove these defects, we have to anneal, or we have to heat this sample to high temperature so that the defects and faults get reduced. So this is one of the disadvantages. Otherwise, this method is quite cheap to be used in our ordinary physics or chemistry laboratory very easily. So these are the control parameters I have already discussed, that reaction temperature, precursor concentration, presence of any type of surfactants, and pH of the solution. These are the control parameters by which we can control the structure of the material. And we know in case of nanoscale material, structure and property are interlinked, because as the structure gets thinner, the potential well will be reduced. So the energy spectrum of the material will change. So the emission and absorption property of the material will also change. So these are the control parameters by which we can modulate the structure into a desired form. Now we shall quickly switch over to the electrochemical deposition method. So this is also a very simple method. You may have done sometimes in your physics laboratory, class 12 physics laboratory. So here is the setup that. So this is a cell. Basically, you can take a glass beaker, and these are two electrode. One is a working electrode, and another is counter electrode. That is basically cathode and anode. And there is a reference electrode, and they are connected to a power supply to maintain a constant current. And here I am showing this is a hot water, but this is always not necessary. Sometimes if the chemical reactions be such that much heat is generated, then we have to cool down, then we have to pass cold water through this region. Or alternatively, we can place this beaker in a ice bath also, so that the temperature will remain maintained. And the precursors, or we say electrolyte, is placed over here in the beaker. Suppose we want to grow zinc oxide over zinc substrate. So we take these electrode as the zinc plate, and this is a reference electrode. Usually we take saturated calomel, and zinc chloride or zinc acetate solutions. Usually zinc chloride is used as electrolyte, and the solution is gets stirred using a magnetic stirrer. So here is the actual setup I'm showing for a precise control of the system. Here you see this is the working electrode, this is the reference electrode, this is the counter electrode here, and this is the electrochemical bath, and the solutions are there, and the entire systems, I mean the currents, voltage, etc., computer control, because control of the current is very important of the system. Then obviously the structure will change. I will show. So this is the basic setup for a precise synthesis of nanomaterials by electrochemical method. Okay, so now quickly switch over to the structures that I have grown. So these are zinc oxide nanostructure grown over zinc substrate. You see different types of octahedrals, prismatic structures, and flower-like structures are formed in this state. And in the second image, you see some two-dimensional flex, like cornflakes-like structures have been grown. And I will show you over here the effect of time. You see this is the growth of zinc oxide nanostructure by electrochemical method, and the temperature was maintained at 70 degrees Celsius, and it was grown on ITO coated glass substrate. You see, initially the growth was this, and if we increase the growth duration like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 300 seconds, you see the morphology of the materials changes. And these are the magnified image of the corresponding image. The magnified image of this one is this. So you see the morphology gradually changes on increasing the growth duration. So not only the growth duration, we can also change the pH of the solution. We can also change the temperature of the solution. We can also change the current applied to the electrodes, and the structure will change. Here I have shown the growth of zinc oxide nanostructure in presence of some surfactant, hexamethylene tetramine. So in the first case, we have used, along with the zinc chloride solution, we have used 10% hexamine. In here, we have used 30%. This is 50%. This is 90%. So so here we see, by varying the precursor surfactant concentration, we can also modulate the structure. Here you see disc-like structures are formed. Now you can see some 3D dumbbell-like structures, rod-like structure have been constructed. Okay, so now in this bottom ACM images, we have used KCl, the percentage of KCl solution added to this. This is 10%, 30%, 50%, and 90%, and you can see a clear change in the morphology of the synthesized patterns are observed. So these data are taken from this paper. You can also read this paper for a detail of the method is there regarding all the precise controls of the parameters. Now I am showing another result. This result is from my group. In fact, my co-researchers are there, and we have developed a simple electrochemical method for growing this fern-like zinc oxide. You can see the structure is fern-like, and each of these discs are hexagonal in shape. So actually, this experiment was done in 2008. Okay, so what are the control parameters? As you have already discussed, the control parameters obviously the concentration of the electrolyte, pH of the solution, and the type of electrode we are using. Suppose we are using in the same experiment, we use glass substrate, and in another experiment we use quartz substrate. In both in all other conditions remains unchanged. In both these two cases, by changing the substrate, the grown structure will be different, because the grown structure also depends on the crystallinity of the metal. Suppose if we use the glass substrate, glass is amorphous, whereas if we use silicon, this is crystalline. So depending on the type of crystalline crystal lattice parameters, there is a lattice mismatch at the interface that will affect the growth of the nanostructure. So the type of electrode is also very important in this case, and obviously applied voltage, growth duration, and growth direction is another important issue. We can make the electrode in such a way that the materials may grow in vertical way or it may grow in horizontal way. So let us see the effect of growth duration. Here you see this is the growth of zinc oxide, fern-like zinc oxide nanostructure, fractal-like structure. This is grown for 5 minutes. If the growth duration is 10 minutes, we see it gets quite thicker, and this is for 15 minutes growth. So we can see as the time increases, the morphology changes. And these results are published in the cover image of this highly renowned journal in the material science, having impact factor of 30. It is a materials today, one of the finest journal in the material science. And this was published in 2011. And in the next year, the second part was also published in the cover image also. That is in Nano Today, which has a very high impact of 20 almost. And now you may be wondering, and this was the actual experimental setup. So we have used a very simple experimental setup to grow these two structures. So let us discuss about this setup so that you can also do this in your home also. So we have taken a petri dish, and surrounding this, you see this blackish region. This is basically a zinc strip. Zinc strip is given, and this we are using a pencil, ordinary pencil, and its graphite acts as one electrode, and this zinc as another electrode. And we put zinc chloride solution, and we connect this zinc plate and this graphite electrode to a current source. You can also use for trial, you can use battery. And if we wait for some time, you see these structures are generated, and these are actually the ACM, scanning electron microscope image of these structures. At the time, we do not have high resolution camera because this was in 2008. So image is not clear, but I think this image is fine to understand that very easily we can grow this structure. And the aim of this lecture to gives the undergraduate students mostly, or graduate students, to have a flavor of the technology so that, and the methods, so that they can also grow some structures of their own interest in their home also, or in their laboratory. So this is the most simplest electrochemical setup that we have done in our laboratory, and we have got these results. So now we shall go to the third method, which is known as spin coating or spin casting. So spin coating or spin casting is a very popular technique in semiconductor industries. Industries in preparing thin film of materials. So it is a very simple method and commonly used to prepare thin film over any kind of substrate. We can use crystalline semiconductors like silicons, you can use glass, you can use quartz, etc. And in this method, we usually use a solution and to spread it over the substrate by spinning. So let us see the schematic of the diagram that will be very clear. First discuss about the setup. If someone's microphone is on, then please mute it. So here is the actual setup equipment for the spin coating. I'm showing this portion over here. Here you see this is basically a small table-like structure, like a 1 rupee coin size round table, and a narrow hole is there in between. And the substrate on which we want to grow the film is put over here, and this narrow line is connected by pipe through a tube through this vacuum pump. So when the vacuum pump is on, it will evacuate the air in between this region, and the outer side is open to atmosphere. So in outer side region we have a very high pressure, and here we have a low pressure. So this substrate is stuck with the table. And that's why you are using vacuum, because we can also use the tape, simple tape, but as the spinning rate will be very high, 2000 to 3000 revolution per minute, that is very high. So then a huge centrifugal force will be generated, so that the substrate will be skipped off over here. That's why you use this vacuum techniques to stick this substrate over here. So this is the setup you see, this one, and all the things are controlled. Here you see, this is the table and this is the substrate. This Ascar is the substrate, and we put some liquid drop over here. Liquid drop means suppose we want to grow, say, zinc oxide. So we have precursors, zinc acetate solution to grow the seeds, and we put the solution drop by drop. The solution is sometimes termed as ink in this spin coating technique. We say this is called ink. This solution sometimes called ink. So we put this ink over this substrate, and we spin this with a very high speed. So as we increase the speed, a huge centrifugal force will be generated, and along with there is another force, is surface tension. So under the combined effect of this surface tension force and the centrifugal force, this liquid will spread over this substrate. Now on hitting the surface, the solvents will be removed. So only the seeds nanoparticle will be remain on this substrate. Suppose we have ethanolic solution of zinc oxide, zinc acetate. So zinc oxide seeds are already formed. Now we have done the spin coating, and if we now do the spin coating, after that, if we allow the substrate to evaporate, then the ethanol will be evaporated, ethanol molecules will be evaporated, only the zinc oxide seeds will be there. So we have to heat this substrate to grow further. If we can heat the sample so that the materials may grow further. And the growth of the material here, growth, I mean growth in a sense, growth, crystallinity, and morphology. This depends on the spinning speed, spinning duration, concentration and viscosity of the liquid, and volatile nature of the solvent. What type of solvent we are taking? If we take water, it will not be easily evaporated. We have to put some light or heating so that it will be evaporated. Or if we use methanol, then in ordinary atmosphere it will be easily evaporated. So this volatility of the solvent is also an important issue. And the spinning duration is usually taken as 1 to 2 minutes, whereas the spinning speed lies in the range from few hundreds to few thousand revolution per minute. So as it is clear from the physics of the experiment that if we increase the thickness, the center, if we increase the revolution of spinning, obviously centrifugal force will be high. So the film will be spread and the thickness will be small. And the thickness of the material is inversely proportional to the square root of the revolution frequency. And here I am going to show you one video. I will show you one video that will clearly demonstrate this experiment. Okay, let's see the video. Just wait for sometimes. I'm just sharing this one. Okay, is the video visible? Can you see the video?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's start. Just wait for a moment. Some technical problem is there. I'll resolve it shortly. Okay. Okay, is the video visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you see this is the setup, experimental setup of the spin coater, and this is automated, fully automated system, so that we can precisely set the time of coating, coating speed, number of coatings, because we can coat multiple layer, 2 layer, 3 layer, 4 layer, 10 layers, etc. Everything we can set. And this is the vacuum pump, and this video will demonstrate. I will just skipping this part. You see, from this panel we can set the different parameters like number, how many revolutions will be there, how many numbers of coatings will be there. And now you see, I'll show you step by step. Okay, so this is the platform actually. So this is the round table over which we will put the substrate. You see over here, the substrate is given here, and this is the narrow hole which is connected through a tube to the vacuum pump. Here it will be shown the vacuum pump. Once this vacuum pump is on, due to this vacuum creation, this substrate is sticked in this region, so that it will not be skipped off during the high revolution. Now you see the entire thing is covered, and now we will put the ink or the solution or the seed solution over the substrate. You see, this is the solution. We're taking droppers over here, and we putting the solution over the substrate here, drop by drop. And now we shall start the system so that the substrate will starts rotating. Okay, it will so you see the substrate is rotating, and due to the centrifugal force and the surface tension, due to this rotation, the entire seeds will be spread over the substrate, and as a result, the thin film will be formed. This is a very popular technique in synthesizing any kind of thin film in semiconductor industries and organic electronic industries. So okay, now let's go back to or issues. Okay. Now you can see this is the ACA image of the spin coated zinc oxide. You see there are multiple layers. This is a cross section view actually. Different multiple layer has been grown. This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 multiple layer has been grown by this method. So we can say that we can grow thin film of different thickness. If we increase the number of coatings, the film thickness will increase. So not only thin film, we can also grow the thick film. So this is a very simple technique to grow thin as well as the thick film of any kind of material. So these are some other structure. These are the images of the nanoparticles form over the substrate, and these are actually the image of the samples when after annealing. So you can see the surface structure, which is embedded with a large number of nanoparticles there. This is another cases you can see very fine. This is if the scale bar is 30 nanometer. I think these particles are 10, 15 nanometers are there. So only few layers of nanoparticles are created over this substrate. And I have given all the links of these images so that you can search this link and you can access this entire paper where the details of the experiments are discussed. This is another result from this journal. So now we can go another method which is known as the spray pyrolysis. So what is spray pyrolysis? This is also a simple method of synthesizing thin film of semiconductors or any other kind of organic film. This method. So spray pyrolysis, as the name suggests, we have to spray the material. So here is the setup. Let's see. Suppose this is a substrate over which we can we want to grow the material. Okay. So this is our substrate. It is placed over a flat table. Table in the sense this is a platform which can be heated. And we have an atomizer control jet. And here we have a connection over here so that the solution are kept in this atomizer jet. Here, and here is a spraying nozzle. We can control automatically so that this nozzle will spray the solution over this substrate. And as a result, spray droplets will be formed over this substrate. And on heating the substrate, we can fabricate the film. So this is a very simple method of synthesizing this structure. And now I will show a video of this spray pyrolysis technique, which will clearly demonstrate this one. Okay, let's see the video. That will be very clear. That will give you the clear idea of the setup. Okay. So, this is the spray pyrolysis equipment I'm showing. Okay. So this is the equipment. This is the growth chamber, and the bottom part consisting of the power supply and other accessories. Okay, I'm just skipping this one. These are several controlling lines by which you can control. You can also put some inert gases within this chamber also that will influence the growth. Here you see.
Sir, video is not showing.
Huh?
Video is not showing.
Video is not showing.
Yes, sir.
Now?
Sir, only you.
No video.
No video, sir.
Okay, okay, let's see. Just wait for a moment. I think there is a problem with the sharing. Okay. Now is it showing?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So this is the setup. This upper part is the growth chamber, and the lower part is the control chamber. Okay. In this control chamber means we have to use power supply, flow of control gases, etc. These all automations are there in the lower chamber, and in this chamber we will have the growth. Now we shall see these are the gas flow controls over here. Here you see this is the thing. This is the atomizer nozzle through which the liquids will be sprayed, and this is our substrate. This is a large substrate we have used, and this is the setup by which we can heat this substrate. Now we can control several parameters like how many numbers of coatings will be there, what should be the droplet size, etc. This can be controlled over here. So these parameters are getting set up. So once the parameters are set up, then the nozzle will be allowed to spray the liquid. It will start soon within a few seconds, 5-10 seconds. You see, now you see this system will start spraying. This is controlling the parameters. Okay, you see. Now it will start spraying. Okay, you see the nozzle is spraying and moving over the entire substrate so that the seeds are formed over the substrate. So the picture clearly indicates that you can grow a large size film using this pyrolysis method. This is also a very common method of synthesizing of preparing thin film, especially for used in organic electronics, where we need a very large film, like whenever we want to devise any kind of display, like your CCD display or quantum dot TV display. This is a very large size screen that can be fabricated, thin film can be fabricated by this pyrolysis method. And obviously there are post deposition processings, those are there, but this is used for large scale fabrication. And this is from the Hallmark, one of the famous industry in optics. So now I'm showing here one image. Let's see. I'll share, just wait for a moment. Okay. So this is the ACM image of zinc oxide nanoparticle grown over substrate, and after growth, they are annealed at different annealing temperature, 400, 600, 800 degrees Celsius, etc. You can see fine nanoparticles have been formed, and you can see the size of the nanoparticles is about, I see these are few microns, 1 to 2 microns, like that. So these are basically hierarchical 3-dimensional nanoparticles. So the thin film is composed of these nanoparticles, and we can use for different types of purposes. So these are mostly the solution phase techniques that are being used in growing nanostructure by chemical methods. So after growing these nanostructure, these are chemical methods. So now I shall quickly switch over to some vapor phase method, because as I have already discussed, that vapor phase methods are mostly used for fabricating various kinds of devices, because in vapor phase method, the quality of the film is very high and the defects are very less. So okay, let's see what are the vapor phase method of growing these materials. So let's wait for a moment. Okay. Is the screen visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are the various vapor phase growth. So these are basically bottom up technique. So vapor phase method include evaporation. There may be physical evaporation or chemical evaporation. These are the physical evaporation techniques, and this is chemical evaporation technique, that is chemical vapor deposition, sputtering, Pulse laser deposition I have already discussed. There are another two methods, vapor liquid solid method, and also the molecular beam epitaxy. Yeah. So out of these methods, I shall quickly try to explain 2-3 methods over here. So let us first start with the physical vapor deposition system. And one of the finest example is the thermal evaporation. As the name suggests, we have to thermally evaporate the material that will be deposited in the form of thin film. So the melting point of the material to be deposited is an important issue in this thermal evaporation process. And also the supply of heat, the form of supply of heat is very essential. So here is the schematic setup. Here you see we have a small filament kind structure which is known as resistance like structures. And within this there is a ceramic board in which we can put the powder. Suppose we want to grow zinc oxide thin film. So we put zinc oxide powders over here and we supply a very high current into this coil. So due to this high heat, these zinc powders will be evaporated and a substrate is fixed over here on the top of the source. So these atoms will now be deposited over this substrate. So as you can see, if we change this substrate distance, obviously the structure will be modified, because I have why this I have already discussed in during pulse laser deposition. If we the substrate is placed at a large distance, the growth will be uniform. And this entire system is kept in a vacuum chamber. So this is the actual accessories. This is the vacuum chamber. We have to first evacuate the setup, because if there are some unwanted air molecules, there will be scattering, collisions, etc. So the growth will be disturbed. So usually it is made vacuum, high vacuum. At 10 to pressure is very low, so 10 to -6 order. We have to use some diffusion pump. So this is the schematic setup of thermal evaporation technique, and this is the actual standardized setup of this. So we have all kinds of controls over there, controls over current, voltage, and the pressures, sample target distance can also be changed from this panel also. And these are some of the structures that have grown. This is zinc sulfide structures grown over silicon substrate. You can see some rod-like structures with some sub spikes are observed in this method. So this thermal evaporation method is also another technique of growing high quality film. Now another method of growing is known as the electron beam evaporation. As you have already mentioned that the name suggests from the type of evaporation, because as we have discussed about thermal evaporation, the material is evaporated thermally. We are passing heat and we are evaporating the material. But the evaporation process can also be done using the electron beam. That is what is known as electron beam evaporation. Okay, so what is electron beam evaporation? In case of electron beam evaporation, the material is evaporated using an electron beam. An electron beam is allowed to incident on the material and the material get evaporated and deposited over the sample. You see, this is the similar kind of structure, and obviously the entire system must be done in a vacuum. So here is the container which contains the element to be evaporated. Here is an electron gun, and we apply magnetic field so that the electron beams get circulated and focused on this container. And once the high energy electron beam is incident on this material, the materials get evaporated and deposited over the substrate. And due to this high energy electron gun, the materials get heated very quickly. It's get heated quickly. So there are some arrangements of passing cooled water through the crucible so that this crucible doesn't get heated and disturb the apparatus. So, as you have already mentioned, this distance is very important in fabricating the film thickness, in controlling the film thickness. So, here is this crystal thickness monitor. What is that? This is nothing but another electron beam. So, this electron beam will incident on this substrate, and actually this is over this side, and this electron diffraction happens, and from this electron diffraction pattern we can observe the thickness of the film, that how much thickness have been grown, we can monitor in situ during growth. So here is the actual setup. You can see this is the actual setup, and we have all kinds of controls over there. So this is a very costly setup, and its maintenance is quite difficult. That's why earlier we said that the chemical synthesis method, Sol-Gel method, electrochemical method, hydrothermal method, these are very simple and cost effective. So these are some of the structures fabricated using this method. You can find the details in this paper. And here, the angle of the beam also plays an important role in the evaporation process also. Because if you change the angle and the target to substrate angle is fixed, then the density of the evaporated plume of the material will be different. That will directly affect the morphology of the structure. So the angle is very important. Now we shall see some other structure, nanoplates like structure that have grown by electrochemical methods also. Now we shall discuss about briefly discuss about another method which is known as the chemical vapor deposition method. This is also a bottom-up process of growing high quality thin film, and usually several kinds of devices are fabricated, thin film devices are fabricated using this method, this chemical vapor deposition. Shortly it is represented as CVD, and you know, the synthetic diamonds are produced by this method. This is a popular method of producing synthetic diamonds. So what is chemical vapor deposition process? In this chemical vapor deposition process, the precursors are taken. I must show over here. The precursors are taken in vapor form, and they are passed through a high temperature furnace in a reaction tube. And at high temperature, this reaction occurs in gaseous phase. Where in earlier cases we have shown that the reaction occurs in liquid phase. Now the reaction will occur in gaseous phase, and we also require some flow of carrier gas like argon, etc. Different types of inert gas, sometimes oxygen and hydrogen are also allowed to pass through this chamber, and obviously through a controlled way. So by controlling this gas flow and concentration, flow rate, etc., the structure of the materials can be varied. So you can see here, this is the SEM image of zinc oxide nanostructure grown on silicon substrate by chemical vapor deposition process. And you see different kinds of morphologies have been formed by changing the process conditions. Here is another kinds of growth. You can see this is a CVD process, and these are basically finely grown. It will be grown again for growing nanowires. You can see the dimension is quite small. So these are due to lack of time, because I have to discuss about also the characterization process. So I will leave the processes over here. Although there are some other processes like vapor liquid solid processes and details of this CVD process, sputtering and electron beam evaporation. If time permits, then at the end of the lecture 5, I'll possibly discuss about those methods also, because those methods are also very important in fabricating various kinds of nanostructures. So these are mostly commonly available methods used in synthesizing nanostructure. And one thing I must mention over here, that in this vapor phase growth of nanomaterial, you see the major control factors are temperature, pressure inside the chamber, and flow of the carrier gas, and type of the carrier gas. I mean, what type of gas we shall put in the chamber. It may be argon gas, it may be oxygen gas, it may be hydrogen gas. What type of gas we should put over there, that is also an important issue. So maintenance of these conditions are really very difficult. Suppose if we are growing these methods at very high temperature, around 1200 to 1400 degrees Celsius, and if you are passing hydrogen and slowly passing hydrogen and oxygen through this reaction tube, so these gases are highly flammable and passing through this high temperature. So obviously there is a risk. So precautions are very essential. So precise control of every parameters in these vapor phases are really very important for successful growth of the nanostructures. So these are some of the processes by which we can grow these nanostructures, and these are the results have already been discussed. So 925. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to address all those questions. You can type this in your YouTube chat box also, or you can type in the live Zoom chat box also. But before that, I'll take 3 questions I have already got from the last lecture. Although there are several questions in the last lectures, and those will be addressed in the subsequent lectures, that's why I have not taken those. But these 3 questions I think I should be addressed. The first one is, please add some advantages and disadvantages and applications of each method of synthesizing the nanostructures. So frankly speaking, each methods have advantages and disadvantages. Suppose if we grow the material by a solution phase method, like a soil method or wet chemical method, etc., obviously the reaction occurs at very low temperature. That is one advantage. And solution phase method, the accessories are not so high, not so costly. So those are very low cost apparatus. So those are the advantages. But one disadvantage is that since those are grown at low temperature, the possibility of defects are there. I must discuss one example over there. If we grow zinc oxide by this CVD process, then that thin film is highly crystalline and almost defect free. And as you know, that zinc oxide has a band gap of 3.37 or 3.4 electron volt. And if we convert it into energy, the wavelength lies in the UV region. So that type of zinc oxide will emit UV light. Whereas if you grow the same zinc oxide using this chemical method, lots of defects are there within the crystal. And these defects have energies that are lies in between conduction band and valence band. So the energy gap is reduced. So the emission will now be shifted towards the higher wavelength. Okay, so that type, the zinc oxide grown by chemical method will show photoluminescence or emissions in the visible region. Okay, so if we use UV, if you need UV emission, then obviously you have to go for this thermal processes or this vapor processes. Similarly, the advantages of these vapor phase methods are obviously that they produce high quality thin film, but these disadvantages are that we have to precisely control various parameters. I mean, as you have already discussed, pressure, temperature, concentration, carrier gas flow, etc. That needs to be precisely controlled. Otherwise, your sample will not show repeatable structure. Okay, and moreover, again and again, I must mention this method. These vapor phase methods are highly cost effective. Suppose pulse laser deposition, electron beam evaporation, etc. These are, and thermal evaporation, these are very costly. The cost of each equipment mostly lies more than 7-8 lakhs. And not only that, there are maintenance costs, like you have to maintain this pressure, you have to flow this gas. So these recurring costs are also very high. So these are one of the disadvantages. Actually, I'm not willing to say these are disadvantages, because the advantages are large. The second question is, in collision process like ball milling, PLD, etc., due to collision, there will be additional heat production. And obviously, this heat affects the growth of the material. Suppose if you consider the ball milling during the collision, the particles are broken and broken. So there are a large number of defects and dislocations are created. And as during the collision, the heat is generated, that dislocations and defects moves to the surfaces and crystal growth occurs, so that ultimately the defects becomes lesser and lesser. That will one inherent advantage of the heat production during the process also. And obviously the produced heat will increase the particle size. In that case, we have to control the growth by reducing the growth duration. Okay. How can the technology of nanoscience be applied in the field of astronomy, astrophysics, space science, and cosmology? Okay. It's not the application of nanoscience. You can say the application of material science. In case of, you see, if we want to study the space science, we have to collect the space. Suppose we collect the sample from space, okay, from say Mars, and we have to analyze the sample through different characterization techniques. What are the sample types? What are the compositions? I will discuss in the next lecture. What are the composition types, etc. That are very useful in studying the types of materials over there in that planets. That will also help us in studying the origin of those planets, etc. And one more example I must mention, that this is what is schematic called the space elevator. So what is space elevator? Let us discuss. Space elevator is a kind of frictional concept right now, because this is yet not realized. Suppose you have a satellite over here, okay, geostationary satellite, which is fixed over your head at a certain height, and this is your base station, and you can connect your base station by some fiber, okay, not optical fiber, some kind of fiber, or sometimes some kind of rope. For the timing, say some rope or thread. And if you want to send any kind of device, you can send it through this way. Okay. So this is the concept of the space elevator. And scientists are trying to developing this space elevator. So this thread or this connection should be very flexible, so that it cannot be stretched out. So scientists are developing carbon nanotubes based structures, tubes like the structure, that are very flexible and that can bear with this type of strength produced. So, however, this is not yet practically realized. These are all in the under laboratory study also. These are not practically realized yet. The fourth question is, easier, time-friendly, and economic side methodologies of making nanoparticles. And obviously, the solution phase methods are more time-friendly and economic. But economic is not always the first criteria of fabricating material. Because if you think, some of you have idea, you can purchase these LEDs in few say 1 rupees, 2 rupees per piece, LED lamps. Can you think of these small bulb? Or if you think of this, these bulbs were a scooter bulb, if you say in your bikes, etc., that cost around 100 rupees, the filament bulb. And now these LEDs are 1 to 2 rupees. Okay, but the fabrication technology they use, that is the evaporation process. Those are very costly. Then why the cost of the product is very low? Because The batch processing is very high because they produce a large number of LEDs at a time. In a chemical vapor deposition setup or any kind of setup, the LEDs are produced, few lakhs of LEDs are produced at a time, few lakhs of transistors are produced at a time, few lakhs of FETs are produced at a time, so that the overall production cost is reduced. Although the equipments are costly, the overall production cost is reduced. So always the economic side doesn't mean that the method would be low cost. We have to also to be concerned about the production yield, obviously. And one thing I must mention, I will be discussed in lecture 5 and 6 regarding the environmental friendly nature of the nanoparticles. The nanoparticles produced by the chemical methods are usually toxic in nature. Okay, so when after use of these nanoparticles, they are released into the environment, they produce toxic effect. Whereas the nanoparticles produced by these vapor phase methods are non-toxic. Okay, so that does not produce any kind of toxic effect in this regard. Obviously, there are some other issues because in any electronic devices we use LEDs, etc. Those are sometimes toxic. Otherwise, the materials by most of them are non-toxic. So that is the main advantage of this method. So okay, let's check the chat box. What are the questions there? Okay. Let me check. Oh, in CVD method, the numbers actually the codes for those samples. You can also search that paper. You can find there. So it doesn't. It not only for these numbers also. Okay, and okay, let me check. What is counter electrode in electrode deposition method? Because you simply speaking, you have one cathode and one anode. Those are the two electrodes. One electrode is taken as the growth electrode, and the other one we say that this is counter electrode, nothing else. Okay. Okay. Any more questions?
Yes, sir. I have a few questions.
Okay.
Sir, in the hydrothermal method, you said about autoclaves.
Autoclaves.
Yes, sir. In autoclaves, pressure maintenance is also necessary. Isn't it?
No, in autoclave pressure is not maintained because this is the entire chamber. The pressure is changing over there. Okay, but as the portion of the air is very small within that. Okay, it is almost airtight, and the you see, if you can remember, that Teflon tube is fully filled so that no air is there, so that there is not much variation in pressure. Obviously, there is a change in pressure because we are heating this, but the temperature is, that's why it is a low temperature growth, that is 100 to 200 degrees Celsius, so that pressure doesn't affect.
Okay, sir. Sir, my next question is, in electrochemical, using electrochemical method, you showed some images, same images of zinc oxide nanomaterials.
Yeah.
My question is, if we can use other methods of synthesizing zinc oxide nanomaterials, can we get many different structures?
Obviously, the structure also depends on the methods.
Methods and the parameters.
Parameters obviously always there, but the morphology, I mean the structure, whether it will be rod shape or it will be cube shape, these are also method dependent. Okay. And obviously you can control the material because if you say that I want to grow fern-like zinc oxide nanostructure by chemical method, that is not possible. Because we are using the electrode And electrode has basically metallic electrode, so it has some interlaced structures, crystal structures over there, and the growth is controlled by the electrochemical potential that plays an important role in growing these structures. That also changes gives P energy of the system, which in turn finally control the structure. So that's why these growth structures are not only the control parameter dependence, but also the method dependence.
Yes, sir. Sir, my next question is, in spray pyrolysis,
Okay.
you showed a video. In that video, we saw that um, from an atomizer, atomizer was spraying on a substrate, but
Yes.
the substrate was kept on a heating surface.
Actually,
So why here
you see,
heating?
because whatever the sprayers of what we are spraying, it is zinc acetate. Suppose if we want to grow zinc oxide film, it is zinc acetate dissolved in methanol. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
we have and this is basically the solution is zinc acetate solution with some zinc oxide seeds. So when it is sprayed along with the zinc acetate seeds, the methanols are also there. So we have to
Yes.
heat the substrate so that these solvents will evaporate and we can quickly deposit. Okay, and obviously we have to take precautions while we are taking this volatile material, but that temperature should not be very high, because if we use methanol, if we go beyond 80 to 100 degrees Celsius, then it will fire up. So control of temperature is also very important in the process.
Yes, sir. Sir, my last question is, why carbon nanotube may be so long? Yeah, is it due to its catenation property or not?
Repeat your question.
Sir, you said in the last portion that carbon nanotube may be very, very long. Or rod-like structure of carbon. So my question is it due
That
to
actually
its...
the carbon-carbon bonding is making carbon-carbon bond to a large extent, making the chain is quite easier. That's why these organics are favored. Okay, that's why you can prepare a very long carbon nanotube, but not long inorganic tubes like non inorganic material. Like if we cannot fabricate, say, few millimeters of these zinc oxide rods like structure,
Yes,
but
sir. Yes.
we can easily prepare few kilometers of carbon nanotube. Okay, that is because of the chaining property. The bonding of the carbon-carbon that are readily in activity also, so that we can prepare a long chain.
Yes,
I think
sir.
I will focus on the fifth lecture while I will discuss about various kind of carbon nanostructures, because carbon nanostructures are also important in modern electronics that I have skipped since the first lecture. That will be discussed in probably fifth lecture. There I will discuss it in detail. Okay.
Okay, sir. Is there Sol-Gel method in the next lecture? Sol-Gel method?
As I have discussed chemical method, that's a solution phase. That's why I am skipping this part right now. I'll go to the characterization part first, and if time permits, then I'll discuss the Sol-Gel again. Okay, because
Okay, sir.
Sol-Gel is similar like that chemical method that I have discussed. So if time permits, only then I will move for Sol-Gel. Otherwise, I'll go for characterization, because those are also most important. So whatever methods we are using, we are saying we have fabricated this one, we have fabricated this one, whether that has been really created or not. We have we are saying that by this method we have prepared gold nanoparticle. Whether the final product is gold or anything else, that we have to study first. Okay, so I'll quickly go through the characterization part in the next lecture. Then if time permits, obviously I will discuss not only Sol-Gel, the electron beam, the VLS method, and the most popular and most costly, the molecular beam epitaxy method also. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, and Bides, I will answer your questions in, I think, in next lecture while discussing the optical properties of material. I will discuss in detail the surface plasmon and the band gaps of the material. There we will find the answer, the size dependent color emission from the nanoparticles. Okay. So,
Okay.
any other questions? So is there any questions? So, okay, if you don't have any questions, then today is up to this, and from next day, I shall discuss about the characterization part, that is mostly morphological and structural study of nanoparticles. Whatever the ACM image I am showing, this is rod-like structure, this is spherical in shape, okay, and this is say tubular shape. How these images are seen, because these are very small, few nanometers, we cannot see even in optical microscope. So how this material can be seen in this electron microscope, that the constructions and the basic working principle will be discussed in the next lecture. I'll mainly focus on the scanning electron microscope, transmission electron microscope, and structural characterization include X-ray diffraction. And then I shall quickly switch over to the optical properties of the material. And then we shall discuss about the environmental aspects of these nanoparticles. When the nanoparticles enters into the environment, what happens? So one small announcement is that the feedback form will be distributed by 10 p.m., 10 a.m. and you have to submit it by 2 p.m. Don't get hurry. It will be distributed to your email and WhatsApp by 15 minutes. So the next lecture will be as it is on the Sunday at 8:30 a.m. sharp. And so thank you very much. So this is an initiative of the Department of Physics, Prabhat Kumar College, Kontai, for spreading general education to our students in this corona pandemic situation. And I must thank Arjun Patra, Department of Physics, Department of Botany, PK College, Kontai, for regarding this Zoom and YouTube live streaming and solving all other technical issues. So thank you very much and stay home, stay safe. So see you in the next lecture. Thank you.